Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here for some PB&J holiday inspiration, and this is the second video in a two-part video series featuring my 12 tags of Christmas. So these are the final 6 tags, and if you happen to miss that first video, I will put a link to it down in the YouTube description box below if you want to check it out. This set of tags, like the first 6, features Penny Black's newest creative dies and just some very basic die cutting using colored cardstock. I did sneak in one little bit of stamping and coloring on one of the tags today, but all the rest are just done by very simple die cutting and layering. So to start, for all of the tags, I've used our Do Not Open Creative Die Set. I cut the base layer from Nina Natural White Cardstock. I ran it through the machine just like that. Then I inserted this center scalloped piece and ran it through again to create the frame. That was die cut from BAZZILL String of Pearls cardstock. And I will have a supply list at the very end of the video with all of the exact cardstock colors and manufacturers and the die cuts and everything at the very end. So to create the tags, I added some thin pieces of foam tape to the border portion, and then I layered that on top. And this cardstock, the border of the tag, actually has a little bit of shimmer and texture, and I just love how that looks with the smoother, solid cardstock piece in the background. So I find, like, for tags like these where I'm not doing a lot of coloring or shading using inks and markers or paints, that textures and different layers of colors like blues and greens together give the tags a finished look. So I'm just mounting that together, and then I will be ready to start with the tags. I did create a whole bunch of tag shapes like that, sort of assembly line style. So here's the first tag we will be making. And this features the new Penny Black die called Pine Branch. This is a really fun die to work with. You can layer lots of pieces together. And like I said before, here's a complete list of all the supplies used on this tag, and I will do this for each tag and put them up on screen at the very end of the video. So if you see one you want to look at in more detail, you can just hit pause and check it out. So I die cut the pine branch from green and also a very light turquoise color, and that just gives us enough variation and interest instead of just one solid piece of green. And don't be afraid with these dies to sort of tear off pieces, like I tore off one of those branches, to mix and match different colors to make them suit your project. That's one of the things I think is so fun about die cutting. It's so easy to alter the original design if you want to. So I'm popping these up with some foam squares, just kind of sticking them behind the larger areas on those pine branches. And then up here at the top, I'm going to put some liquid adhesive and sort of slide that under that border. Then I'm going to tear off just a few of these turquoise ones and just glue them onto the branch. And I love how this creates just a really full look. Since there isn't a lot else going on this tag, this just gives it that finished look and some extra interest. This is a die that's really handy to have a whole bunch just cut. I cut a lot and then I just keep them in an envelope with the die. So whenever I'm making something, I can easily just grab one out and add it to my project. It looks good underneath like stamped poinsettias, or if you wanted to make a border with it, it's just really handy. So here's the pine cone element, and I cut this from 2 different colors of paper. One is a Kraft and one is an almond color. They're very close, but not quite the same, so it's just enough that you can tell the difference without it being too much contrast. And you just can glue those right on top. And then I will add them to the tag. Kind of nestle them here in the branches. I put liquid adhesive up at the top, and then I will add some foam squares down at the bottom. The liquid adhesive that I'm using is just Tombow Mono Multi Adhesive. I find it's a really nice permanent adhesive once it's dry, but it gives you a little wiggle room when you're first putting things down that you can readjust, and it dries very clear. So here's a look at that finished tag. And next we're going to move on to this fun tag. This features our ornaments kit creative die set. I love that this has the strings included so you can actually put the ornaments on the string. And I'm going to use the little snowflake here from our Christmassy creative die set to embellish one of the ornaments. So I die cut the tops to the ornaments here, and I'm just gluing those on. Again, that's another really nice feature to this die set, that those are included. It gives a finished look, especially if you are just die cutting from cardstock and you aren't planning to do shading or inking on each one. I'm adding that snowflake here. The ornament is cut from red, and the snowflake is actually cut from an orange color. So I like to have a little yellow and orange in my designs, and it's surprising how when you layer the orange on the red, it doesn't really scream orange, but it is just enough different to add some interest. I put foam squares on the back of those, and I'm just sort of threading them on here to the string, and then I can put it right onto the tag. And then I'll use just a little bit of glue on the tops here on the border, which is popped up, so it kind of gives that string some dimension as it moves across the tag. And I'll grab my scissors here and just trim off the excess of that string. And another look at the finished tag. Now the next tag I think might be my favorite of this set, and this features our creative die set winter trees. And I love that this has sort of the tree that can line up along one side of your card or tag. It also has the full tree, and it has all those birds that you can cut out. I use the joy sentiment from the Christmas poinsettia cutout. As you can see, it has a matching stamp, but I'm just using here the little word joy that's included in that die cut set. And I cut this from the Nina Natural White cardstock, which is what that sort of base tag shape is. And in order to have this pop and just give it a finished look on the tag, I cut it 4 times, and I'm just gluing each layer together so it gets to be this really thick stacked die, and then that is what I will then glue onto the tag. And I like that this is kind of there but not there. It doesn't take anything away from the tree or the birds, but it still finishes off the design and gives a nice sentiment on there. So I have them all glued together, and I'm ready to add them to the tag. So again, just doing all of that with liquid adhesive. Make sure they're straight. And then I'll pull in this awesome tree. Now this I'm going to glue right along the border of the tag. Then I'll trim off the excess that extends beyond the tag. Just working here on the positioning. And this die cut set, these winter trees and all these birds, they're really great if you want to use them for Christmas cards or holiday cards, but they're also great for any type of winter themed card if you're doing thank you cards for after the holidays or winter birthdays, or even just masculine cards. You can use them in so many different ways. You could ink or paint a background, a sunset, different things, and then layer these trees and birds on top like a silhouette type of image in a dark cardstock. There's just so many different ways to use them, and I love that with die cuts when you can use them lots of different ways with your stamps or on their own. Now, I die cut my birds from all different colors of cardstock, and I just thought that was a happy, fun look. Kind of went along with the joy sentiment. If you wanted something a little more traditional, you may want to do them just in red or blues or even a dark brown. And some I'm gluing on here with liquid adhesive, and some I will pop up with a tiny little piece of foam tape. Just kind of depended where they were positioned on the branches. Now these tags, you could write your message or your to and from on the back. You could die cut another layer to add behind this if you wanted to be able to fill them out easily, add them to a gift bag or a package. They also, I think, would look really cute just on the front of a standard size card. They would fit nicely with a sentiment stamped beneath them. You could even wrap the card with ribbon and tie a bow up at the top, almost like the card is the present and this is the gift tag on the card. So there's lots of different ways to use these once they're complete. They'd also make a fun gift set. If you were giving a gift before Christmas, you wanted to give these to someone who could use them on their packages. So here's the finished card, or the tag, and the next one we'll be working on. And this features our Christmas tree border. Comes with that fun tree border and also the little stars that you can cut out to put up at the top of the trees, or I'm going to use mine to create sort of a night winter sky. So I've cut this from two different colors of cardstock, a light blue and a green, and I'm going to layer them and sort of slide over and offset the top layer so you can get even more dimension and more of a scenic look with the border. I'm just deciding here where I want it to begin and end, or which portion of the die I will use on the tag, and I'll trim that and just slide it in there. And then I'll grab the green. And just like I did with that pine branch die at the very beginning, I like using two different colors of the same die just for even more interest, even more depth, since I'm not doing any coloring or inking. I wanted to give this a little bit different look. So this one tree that has the sort of polka dots on there, I'm just going to back that with another piece of sort of a turquoise color. If you wanted more contrast, I also think this would look really fun and I kind of wish I had backed it in a red, so it would really have a pop of color there on that one tree. But it's really easy to do. Just roughly cut around it and then glue it to the back. And this I'll just glue here along this border and offset it. And I just love how that looks, like it's a whole forest there. And you can see the size of this die would work good on a standard size card too. And I'll just trim off the excess here from the back. And then I will be ready to add the stars. I cut those from some yellow and a little bit of orange. And I will just add them up here in the sky. And once again, just like that winter trees die cut with the birds, this is another one that you can get a lot of use out of, not just for the holidays. You could add this in the background even of a camping scene, or any type of winter scene that you wanted. You could put sort of critters, stamped critters in the foreground. There's just a lot of different ways you can use it. Also, it would be good for masculine cards too. So once I had those stars glued on, that tag was complete. So here's a look at the finished one. And this next tag, I sort of mix and matched a variety of different dies that I had used throughout this series. This is called the Berry Flourish die. I love this. There's so many ways to use it. I added poinsettia from the Stitched Poinsettia set. And then I also used the tiny little flowers or poinsettias from the Lamppost die. So here's that gorgeous Berry Flourish. You can do so many different things with this die on cards and tags. I've die cut it here from green, and I'm just mounting it to the tag like this. And honestly, I think this tag would look beautiful just like that. You could stamp your sentiment up in that right-hand corner, or write your message or the to and from up there, and that would be a beautiful tag. You could do it in a lot of different colors, or even cut it like from a glitter cardstock, and it would be so pretty. I'm adding some foam squares just behind a couple of the leaves, so that they're at the same level as that outer border to the tag shape. Just adding those in. And here, this part I will glue directly down. And then, just like the pine branch die and so many different dies, Don't be afraid to tear apart or use just little portions of the die. So here I'm just using the top portion of that berry flourish die. And you'll also see later on that I just tear off and use a few leaves here and there on this tag. So this tag is a little bit busier than the other ones that I've made, and you could, like I said, you could stop right here and be done. I just had fun building up lots of layers on this one. So this is that stitched poinsettia, and I cut it 2 times of the same size. This is the smaller size that's in that set. And I'm just adding it here with the flourish using foam squares to get lots of dimension, but the center I'm just going to glue directly on. And these are the tiny little poinsettia flowers from the lamppost die. These are some other ones that I really enjoyed having just cut a whole bunch of different colors of those little flowers and had them in an envelope. So when I was ready to make the tags, I could just grab from that and embellish as I liked. And just putting those on with liquid adhesive. And then this one I decided to pop up just a little bit. And I'm layering some red and orange. So to me, those still look primarily red, like a traditional poinsettia, but I've just something a little extra special because of the orange and a little more dimension to it. I trimmed off that top little leaf that was extending beyond. Here's that berry flourish die again, and I'm just using some of the sort of golden yellow leaves. And as I created this, I tried to create a visual triangle with each of the colors. So I have the yellow center to the flower, and now I'm adding a couple of yellow leaves so that I can create sort of a triangle. If I connected the dots to all of those, I would have a triangle of sort of yellow on the tag. And then same thing with the turquoise. So I have that one flourish kind of coming up on the right. So I'll put down a turquoise leaf down here, and then another up near the top. That just kind of leads your eye all around the tag. There is still a little room if you wanted to up at the sort of top center portion of this tag to write a message or stamp a greeting or do your to and from right there. You certainly could. And that completes that tag. So here's another look at the finished one. And we'll move on now to the tag where I did do just a little bit of stamping and coloring. This features the scroll, the smallest scroll from our die set called Paper Scroll. I love this die set. I've used the larger ones on several cards. And I'm also going to use the snowflake from the Christmassy Bell die set and a sentiment from the Snowflake Sentiment set. And if you haven't looked at those closely, I really recommend to pause it and read each one. They are so fun, those sentiments on there. So I die cut this from Kraft Cardstock, and I'm so sorry I'm kind of covering that with my head a little bit. What I'm using here is a Copic marker to add some shading and really accentuate the look of the scroll. So I'm just flicking on a little bit of this light brown. It's E31, which will be listed at the end of the video in the supply list up on screen. Right along sort of the fold where the scroll comes in, around the curve right here, and then this portion as well. You could also put a sticky note there and mask off the bottom portion and use your distress inks and an ink blending tool and a foam pad to add some inking there if you didn't want to color that with a marker. You could cut it from watercolor paper and paint on the shading. I've done that on a couple of the cards where I've used this die. I wanted a little bit darker color, so after I add this E31, I do go back in with some E57. When you're coloring on craft paper like this, as the ink dries, it lightens up quite a bit. It is very forgiving as far as seeing the brush strokes that you've added. And because we're stamping on it, also hides any imperfections. And I love how this is just one layer, but it looks so like it really is curled up and wrapped around like a scroll. It's a fun way to add a sentiment to a tag like this. It's also a great way to add a sentiment on a card if you wanted to use, say, like that berry flourish and wrap it around this scroll and layer that onto your card. There's so many different ways you could use it. So here's the sentiment that I've chosen from that snowflake sentiment set, and I'm stamping this with archival ink in the color of potting soil. I am stamping it in my Misty Stamp Positioning tool, which just allows me to stamp it multiple times and really darken up the color of my stamping. And I'm ready to now assemble the tag. I'm going to put this scroll piece on using a foam square. I put that mainly just towards the center of the scroll so I can tuck in these snowflakes behind. And I'll just use liquid adhesive to glue these down. And I cut those just from 3 shades of blue. Those also would be pretty cut from a very glittery, sparkly paper. And if you did it with a lighter color, maybe a darker color of cardstock for your tag would just be another variation depending on what style you're going for. I'm adding just a few 3 self-adhesive pearls here to the center, one for each snowflake. And that will finish off this tag design. Here's another look at the finished tag. And I thought it'd be fun here just to pull out all 6 tags I made in this video and lay them out. I'd love to know which one is your favorite. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. Mine is definitely, I think, the one with the birds, but it's just fun to see what everyone else likes the best too. I thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, as well as our website and blog. And I will link to all of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. And stay tuned. Here at the very end of the video is the supply list for each tag.